Fellow auto detailers, welcome to the show that features interviews with today's most successful auto detailers. This is the Auto Detailing Podcast. Here's your host, Jimbo Balaam.
Welcome to episode 252 of the Auto Detailing Podcast. I'm Jimbo, your host, doing another quick little intro because I just recorded a show with Dan Williams and Yvan Lacroix of the Optimum Synergy Podcast. This is going to be a dual podcast, going to be released on my feed as well as their feed at the same time when you're getting this. But I just wanted to jump in and do a little intro. Thank today's sponsor, that is the Better Software Company. Guys, again, I know I'm beating the same drum, but this software is life-changing. I keep track of all my customers in here. The feature that I am loving the most right now and will come in really crucial in the slower months, in the winter months, is reminders. So I have all my customers at minimum on a reminder for every, or at maximum, I should say. I'm getting in touch with them every 3 months. So I have tried to keep track of that in the past with writing it in my journal, setting a reminder in my calendar on my phone, and nothing has worked except for this because it's virtually automated. So I have a reminder pop up, and I'll either send them an email or use something like Slide Dial and drop them a voicemail to remind them it's time to get another detail. So check out thebettersoftwarecompany.com. Tell them Jimbo sent you. They're going to give you a free demo so you could see the user interface of the software and see how you can really make some serious money by integrating their software into your business. Whether you own a fixed location, you have multiple mobile trucks out, you have multiple fixed locations, or it's just a single-man band like I currently operate, it just makes things so much smoother. So check them out at thebettersoftwarecompany.com and enjoy this episode with Dan Williams and Yvan Lacroix.
4, 3, 2, 1. And welcome to the Optimum Synergy Podcast. I'm here with Yvan Lacroix and our special guest today, or we're his special guest today, however this is going to work out. A little podcast combo with Jimbo Balaam.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
This is going to be interesting. We've done this once before with 3 people, but it's always an interesting dynamic.
It was actually the catalyst that made me suggest that we should have a podcast was when Yvan and I came onto your podcast a year or so ago.
Well, what can I say? You're welcome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Jimbo.
Just kidding. No, I enjoy your guys' podcast, and I hope that it's helping to expand the Optimum brand, and I welcome anyone to start a podcast, because the more people that know about podcasts, it's just better for me, right? Or better for all of us, really.
Exactly. Absolutely. And the Optimum podcast is not really about monetizing Optimum. It's more about education. And I know that you listen to our podcast, and Dan has a lot of interesting guests on. Recently had a guy doing about SEO, and I know we're talking before we started recording about this, so I know Jimbo's listened to it. And he's had his tax accountant on there, and someone from Charles Schwab. And I know that on your podcast, you have a lot of interesting guests as well that have nothing really to do with detailing in the strict sense of the word. They're not out there polishing cars, but the detailing world is very wide, and we all have businesses, and it's, the business aspect of it as well. So
I always look at it and go, man, from a guy, because a lot of the motivation for me when starting the podcast was helping the new guy to kind of decipher what's good, what's bad, all this information out there. And so I look at it now and I'm like, man, it's so refreshing to see like a couple core guys and companies kind of leading that all these new guys can pick from, and it's actually quality information that's putting out there. And a lot of it, if they listen to your guys' show and my show, that in and of itself is 2 hours every single week of just rock solid or thereabouts. I guess I sometimes don't hit an hour, but that's quite a bit of content every single week, for a guy to devour. There was nothing like that when I started,
No.
Yeah, I find, and for everybody listening, for both Jimbo and us, if you guys have ideas of things that you would like to hear on a show, it's very very helpful if you tell us what those are, Other than that, it's me thinking, okay, who the heck am I going to try to get on here?
Yeah. What am I going to talk about today? Quick story. So I was trying to come up with a show a couple weeks ago, I think, and I don't know if you run into the same problem, Dan, or Ivan, getting guests, but sometimes there's like a couple week lead time, or if the guest doesn't know what a podcast is, it takes a little while to gain their trust and confidence to get them to commit, and then the busier the people are, the harder it is to get them to commit. But so I had a week that I was just going to record a solo show. So I sat down in front of my computer and in fact, I think it was the show before this show airs or will air, but I talked for 45 straight minutes into the microphone. I almost made myself sick because I felt like I just talked way too much. Had a headache. I'm like, I got to get guests on more often.
I haven't actually, I think I did the very first one that but I have not gone and just gone for it by myself, a solo show.
It's fun, but it's like, how do you make a joke to yourself and then laugh and not feel kind of weird about it? Anyway.
Yeah.
So
if you're going to do that, you might as well have a applause track
to add in later.
Yeah.
But the reason for us getting together was to really talk about camaraderie among detailers. And Ivan, I like what you said before we started talking, and that's competing together instead of competing against each other. So what does that mean to you, and what do you think the industry needs, or what would you like to see? How does that practically look like for us to compete together?
Yeah. Well, if you look at the number of cars that are on the road, or we'll do the podcast to start off with. There's very few podcasts related to detailing. Mm. So if you take our two podcasts and maybe one or two others, that's a maximum of 4 hours a week that someone can gather detailing information through podcasts. There's a lot more than 4 hours in a week. And I know that, some people will listen to audiobooks, some people will listen to podcasts, some people listen to music as they work. But if they can throw one podcast in a day, that's 5 podcasts a week that they could listen to. You're down to one a week. We've always only been one a week. So there's 3 other days to fill. So there's room out there for more podcasts. And education is education. So everybody learns, everybody gains from it, everybody moves forward. And there's no real there's no real competition. We listen to your podcast and you listen to ours, and I have fun listening to yours, and I know you have fun listening to ours. So it's one of those things where we've never competed against each other. We've never, Dan and I have never sat down and said, "Oh, did you listen to Jimbo's podcast? Darn, he got us," or something like that.
I'm more likely to say, "Hey, let's not do a show about X, Y, or Z because he just did one."
Exactly. Yeah. Because we don't want to. We don't want to go over the same subjects you have.
Sure.
Sometimes we actually have one recorded, ready to go, and then you put yours out, and it's like, oh, let's put that one aside.
What was it?
Oh, I forget. It was about 2 months ago.
Oh,
but
okay.
Nonetheless, it was no big deal. We just put it aside for a couple of weeks, and then released it, when the time came. And it was just not to be repetitive for people. It had nothing else other than that. But it's just, someone that listened to your podcast on, let's say, polishing with a rotary. And then we put one out on polishing with a rotary the next week. Well, what's the point? There's no additional information after you've gone over it for an hour and we go over it for an hour. Probably there's going to be some repetition in both those hours. So there's no real point in doing it. Mm-hmm. And if you take that on the detailing aspect of it, I'm in a town of 60,000 people. There's, we'll say, 7 legit detailing shops here. And then there's people that pop up here and there and go away here and there. So, but we compete together. There's no point in me competing against someone. There's more than enough cars on the road. There's more than enough customers. I compete on customer service. I don't compete on price. I don't compete on I'm better than you are, he's better than I am. et cetera, et cetera. I don't get into that. When someone comes to me and they start bad-mouthing a competitor, I say, hey, first of all, I don't want to hear it. Secondly, I don't know what you purchased from them. Did you buy a hot dog and you were expecting a steak? We always, and in the detailing world, we always hear it. The guy up the street, he's a hack. Because I've seen his work and it's no good. Well, you've seen his work, but do you know what the customer paid for?
Exactly. That's a great point, and that's something that I think about a lot, because sometimes you worry, and maybe you don't worry about this, but you put out a car that isn't perfect, and you worry about, what if another detailer sees this? But like you just mentioned, the flip side of that is, well, they have no idea what the customer actually wanted, and the customer could be totally happy with their car being quote unquote hacked up.
Yeah, I just had that situation happen with a boat that I did a couple months ago, and I put some pictures on Facebook of this boat, and this guy messages me, and he's like, hey, I could still see scratches and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, the guy was paying for a one-step, so I'm not going to wet sand his gel coat and polish it,
Yeah. I think Dylan Von Kleist, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but more than likely I'm not, and I think we're all in that same boat where we have problem pronouncing other people's names. So, but anyways, yeah.
Now you're officially a podcaster too.
Welcome.
Yeah, and it's actually, I put it in the pin post of the Detailing for Dummies group on Facebook. He wrote a wonderful article called Detail Sniping, and it's just literally that. Someone posts a picture on Facebook or wherever, and they pick apart the tire shine doesn't look right, or it's too glossy, or whatever. And it's like, God, I just put a picture up there. I think it looked good. Customer was really happy. Customer even paid me for it. He was so happy. And then the keyboard detailers go after this person, and it turns out to be a lynch mob. So so that's something that in this industry I think needs to change.
So how do we change that? Is it through the IDA?
You can't change it. You can't change it. It's just people's nature, It's like war. You can't change war.
So how do you? Yeah,
I know that sounds so negative. I'm sorry.
No, I understand.
And everybody's a tough guy when they're behind the keyboard. You got people saying stuff to people that they would never say to them in person.
Right, because I think what happens then is like, okay, so because I've had that happen to me, that same situation you talked about, Dan. It's like automatically people start griping about your work, and you're like, man, you don't even know what I did, or like whatever, like we've been talking about. So what I've realized is that I will be very selective with what I actually post in regards to my work online. But then I feel like that's counterintuitive to what I'm trying to do and help other guys succeed. So it's like, where do we find that balance between, posting not just our highlight reel, but also like the reality of detailing and making money, but also, dealing with those keyboard detailers?
Yeah, for me, it was always not always, but for the past few years, it was fairly easy because I was affiliated with Optimum, so I would show a lot of pictures of the products and the systems that would make them work, and that would be the reason for my entire post.
And one thing I think we can kind of mix in here that I know, Dan, we talked about a little bit about it before we started recording, and Yvan, I know you have experience selling other companies too, but one thing that I think would be of a lot of value, Dan, and both you guys, is to talk about selling your business, because to bring it into full circle with camaraderie, if you wouldn't have had the camaraderie with other detailers, you wouldn't have had the network to reach out to find the guy to buy your business, right?
Yeah, actually, we're going to do. We can talk about that a little. We're going to do an entire show about buying and selling businesses with a company called Axion. It's a government-funded thing that helps people get small business loans.
Got it.
And I'm interviewing them next week.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, let's talk about it now.
Well, just then we'll stay fairly vague. But like, how did it? So obviously you're a rep for Optimum and you're doing that. Did that start as like the side thing, a few hours a week, and then it kind of developed into this part-time and then full-time thing? Or how did that start? And then when did you know it was time to sell your business?
Well, my Optimum journey started with going to Florida and watching Dr. G's little spiel about how OptiCoat cross-links to the paint using colored paper clips, and then
I think you talked about that on Cars Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
So I became a distributor, and just Joe Fernandez at one point when I called him and asked him, hey, what about this compound or this polish? And he told me, just find a company that you like and products that you like and become the best at those. So I took that to heart. Just kept using the products and posting pictures and being positive and showing up for the first SEMA and getting invited back. And I think the couple years that we were all consultants was a little trial run as the company was growing, and then we got offered jobs. And part of being offered a full-time job was it's a full-time job. You can't really have the second thing taking your energy and time away.
Mm. So then how did you find the guy to sell the business to? Did you know you wanted to sell it, or did you want to just kind of fizzle it out?
Well, I had always heard that there wasn't really much of a value in a mobile detailing business. However, perhaps it was because of my position with Optimum. I offered it to three people, and four people, and all four of them, when I first said it, they were kind of like standoffish, like I was trying to rip them off or something. But within a day or two, each one of them came back and they were like, I will buy that for that price right now. I got the money. And
how did you come up? I'm sure you'll talk about this too, but I'm just curious. But how did you come up with the price?
I literally pulled it out of my butt.
Okay.
And when I say literally, I'm almost serious. I just kind of thought of a number, and in hindsight, it was a number that was ludicrously low for, something that, a business that's $60,000-$70,000 a year.
Right.
I gave it away.
Basically, from my perspective, Dan sold his business for the value of the equipment.
Mm.
Yeah, it was way low. But Dustin Wharton, the guy who bought it and turned it into Official California Detail, super nice young man. He came here. He just moved here from Colorado with his girlfriend, and he's set up. And I'm so happy that he got it and it turned out like it did.
Yeah, and there's value in that, knowing that it's going to a good person that's not going to run it into the ground. Yeah. And then you already mentioned this offline, but for people that weren't privy to that, what did the transition look like? Because I know, like, for example, with my customers, they like seeing me, right? Every time I bring help along, they're like, who's this guy? You could like see it in their face of like, uh-oh, here we go. So what did that look like to that transition to him taking over?
Well, kind of one of the factors in him taking the business was he has a really good look. And that's important in this business. It really had to be somebody with a good look. Right. And I just took him and introduced him to all the people, and it was very matter of fact that I am selling him my business because I've taken a full-time job that and I'm not going to be coming here to wash your car anymore. So they all really accepted it great, and he's a well-spoken person and outgoing, so it was a pretty smooth transition.
Nice.
A couple of the people, you could tell who your customers who like care about you and they want to see you succeed, because they were all really happy, but there's a couple of them that were a little, just bummed that I wasn't going to come and wash their car. And I kind of felt like, you know what? I'm trying to do something, move forward in my life. And,
right.
So it kind of showed a couple people's true colors maybe, but the rest of them, beautiful.
Nice. So then camaraderie, going back to, thanks for talking about that, Dan. And if I'm hijacking at all, just cut me off and
Not at all.
Okay.
Oh no, we'll ask you questions too.
Cool.
You're on our podcast and we're on your podcast, so nobody's hijacking.
It's kind of an interesting dynamic. I'm like, well, do I take the lead? Do I let them take the lead? I'm not sure what to do here. But how important are getting to trade shows like SEMA? How important is that? We have SEMA coming up here in less than a month. Is that important for the guy who is just running a detailing business in his local town? He doesn't really want to, expand into this huge global or national brand, but maybe he just wants to run a small mobile detailing shop or business. Is it important for that guy to invest in going to something like SEMA or Mobile Tech, or is that more of a expense and a burden?
So when I very first started going to shows, some of my customers would be like, "Oh yeah, you're going to Vegas for a convention for car washing." Right, it sounds Dan. Silly,
right?
But I'll tell you what, by doing that, the people that I met from the first one I went to is the International Car Wash Association show, probably in like 2005. Maybe something like that, or 2003 or 4. And for meeting people at that thing, it completely made this whole career choice that I had taken with detailing and turned it into a real viable thing with other people that were like-minded. I've not gone to any of those shows, any of them, and not come back all pumped up and jazzed up and ready to do business. And I've learned something, just like every clinic that I teach or every training class that I teach, I always learn something. I think it's huge.
Like you said, Jimbo, it's an investment. It's not an expense. Whether it be Mobile Tech Expo, whether it be SEMA, whether it be Detail Fest, the networking, first of all, is extremely important. It gets, you get to see that these people aren't your competitors. And some people are very brave behind a keyboard, but when you meet them face to face, all of a sudden they're really different people. So, some person that may have attacked you online with the sniper thing, when he's in front of your face, he shakes your hand and has a big smile. So, and then life goes on from there and it moves forward. So, and from that point on, you're not going to be bothered by that person, in that respect, and there's more respect amongst peers that way. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, and how about for you, Jimbo? I heard you're going to SEMA this year after not going last year.
Yeah, so last year, let's see, I have 3 kids now, and they're all under 4. So last year we had just had a baby, and it was just like, there was no way I was getting out there to go. No. But the first year I went, which was 2 years ago, was unbelievable. Because like you said, you meet all these other people, you get to talk to them, see what kind of operation they're running, you get to see all the new products coming out, how they work, how they operate, and you get to take pictures of you there, which is kind of a bonus, that your customers like to see that you're developing your craft and educating yourself. And I think of it as a way of separating yourself from your competition, because you're seeing all the latest and greatest products. And also, it's like I found Dr. Color Chip on the last day, the last walkthrough I did at SEMA in 2014. I found Dr. Color Chip, and I've made a few $1,000 off that. So, yeah. More than paid for my trip, and it was a added revenue generator for me. And it was like I caught it the last day, and I would have never known about it, but I wouldn't have found out about that particular product right then,
Yeah. And SEMA is one thing. SEMA, first of all, is a great show. You're never going to get to walk through all of SEMA in one 4-day period. It's just too big. My wife has tried. It can't be done. And she walks fast. And she didn't stop to talk to anyone. But, by the time you walk through all the outdoor displays, the indoor displays, et cetera, there's a lot of walking at SEMA. But so you have to plan your trip as to who you want to see and where you want to go. But another trade show that often gets overlooked is Mobile Tech Expo. There's a lot of things other than the show floor. There's a lot of education that goes on beside that. And same thing with SEMA. If you sign up at SEMA as a SEMA affiliate, there are a lot of educational seminars, and they're designed not necessarily aimed at the detailer, but there's a lot of business related things going on there. And at Mobile Tech Expo, there's a lot of detail seminars put on by detailers through the IDA. And just that makes that show really valuable.
Mm.
Last year at Mobile Tech Expo, they had classes from 7 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon, and there are people that I don't think ever went onto the show floor. They just went from class to class.
That brings up an interesting point, too, that I found even most valuable at SEMA is that, the show itself is really cool, but it's probably, I would say the main reason why I go is the networking either before or after the show hours. So whether that's dinners or parties or cigar parties or whatever the occasion may call. In 2014, It was a dinner. And there's little. In fact, that's where I met Yvan. Is through that dinner. We were sitting next to each other.
Exactly.
So, I like the show, but what I like better is the networking after the show. Because a lot of the people working the booth, they're on. You guys know you work the booth. I don't need to tell you anything. But you got to be on. You're working. So and you're demoing the new products and stuff like that. So I really like the after hours networking stuff.
Yeah, it's more exhausting than you can even ever imagine, probably, because you are constantly on, and every time you're done saying your spiel, somebody else walks up and you got to start all over.
Yeah, that's what I found out. You guys look, not you specifically, but everyone just looks completely beaten up by Thursday. They're just like, what is, most people lost their voice. They can't even stand anymore.
And we're, at the Optimum booth, we're all teetotalers, if you want to put it that way, even though I don't drink tea. But anyways,
Do you drink coffee?
Back to our No, I don't drink coffee. I drink water.
Oh.
But we go back to our hotel in the evening, and we'll go to the spa, have a massage, and go to bed early. We don't go out drinking and all that stuff. So we know that some of the other booths around us, we hear the stories the next morning where they're all sort of talking really low and have weird looks on their faces that they went out drinking the night before, and I don't know how they can do that and then do the next day and then the day after and the day after. So,
right. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, like you say, we're pretty much we do the show, go back to the hotel, have supper, go to the spa, go to bed.
Oh, I thought you meant you gave each other massages.
No. No, we're close, but not that close.
Oh, I don't even know what to say about all that.
Like Dr. G hands out our nightly massages, and then we just curl up in bed together. Just kidding.
Oh, sorry, Jimbo, you're not going to get that one.
So what are you guys going to release at SEMA this year?
What are we releasing at SEMA?
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I know you can't talk about it.
Oh, we've been throwing the teaser out for our new PPF. It's we're all over it. That's the main thing.
Yeah,
that's cool. And I saw that. I thought, you know what was funny when Kevin Davis talked about the bedliner stuff. I literally thought he was kidding. I was like,
he's not kidding.
Is that really an Optimum thing?
It really is. And surprisingly, since we're sponsoring Team Sugar High, that's why they have all of, our stuff on there. Since he posted that, holy moly, I have had no less than 12 phone calls for people, my installers, calling me being like, well, I need to get this.
That's awesome. Is that going to be something that's going to be released at SEMA, or is that down the pipe some separate?
We're hoping the product is ready. One thing that slows us down a lot on product release is labels, and just the bottling of things. Since we do everything in house, everything is bottled in house. Everything is done, at the Memphis facility.
It's called the mothership.
Yeah, mothership, as Dan loves to call it. There's a lot of things that have to be taken into consideration, and one of them is the actual bottling process. And some of the items, when they get non-standard, like this product is not a standard, it's not in our standard bottle.
Right.
So this requires to have tooling made for the bottling machine to do that, and also mixing of the product, and et cetera, et cetera. So we have prototype product, that was mixed in small batches. We know it works. It works really well, actually. I've been spraying bed liner from another company for years, and as soon as I can get my hands on this, we'll be transitioning all our customers over to this. It's one of the advantages it has over most of the other bed liners on the market is that it's UV stable. So it's not going to go gray and chalky like some of the bed liners.
Right.
The other thing is you would, when it's properly sprayed on, obviously, it's human error can become a factor, but it's very easy to spray on. But when it's properly sprayed on, it looks like the OEM bed liner.
Oh, wow.
And that's the look we're after. That's the feel of it. That's the thickness of it as well. It's not a very thick bed liner like some of the bed liners, and it's also water based. So you're not, there's no carcinogens in it. One of the things with Optimum products, David or Dr. G won't put out a product unless it's safe to use, safe for the environment, and has some technological advancement. Well, this fits all those three. It's very safe to use because of the carrier solvent is water, as opposed to a lot of other nasty things. And the technological advancement, it doesn't require really expensive mixing equipment. It doesn't require expensive guns. It's the gun to shoot it is the same gun we actually use for our tire gel. So it's a $59.99 gun that shoots the. Yeah.
Interesting.
So the initial investment is $60 as long as you have a compressor.
Wow, that's incredible. That's going to open up a whole bunch of revenue streams for guys.
Yeah. Now
Crazy.
it's not a how can I say, a bomb-proof bed liner.
Sure.
It has the same wear characteristics as the OEM bed liner. So yes, if you throw 3 tons of steel at it, yeah, it might scratch. Just like the OEM bed liner. Whereas some of the big name aftermarket bed liners, they're a lot thicker. Their consistency is different, and they're basically almost bomb-proof. But this product, as I said, is more like the OEM. But on the other hand, it's extremely easy to repair. So if the customer has a gouge in it or something, it can be repaired. Whereas some of the other big name bed liners, if they do happen to get a gouge in them, you have to reshoot the whole bed. So
where did the idea for that come from? Because my initial thought was, man, that's kind of a random product to develop. But maybe it's
that's what I thought too.
But maybe it's not. So and that's why I thought it was. That's why I thought it was like a fake or a spoof or something. Because I'm like, huh.
Now we're trying to become like a one-stop shop with all of our own products.
Yeah. And
so how about for you, Jim? What are you going in affiliation with anybody, or are you just going and walking the show? I did hear you say that you're going to be doing recording from there.
Yeah, I'm just going to go record the show. I think Darren is going to come with me, so we're going to try to do a lot of video and audio recordings and stuff like that. But for me, it's just a straight networking opportunity, and just I'm going kind of under the banner of the podcast and just trying to get FaceTime with people that I've been trying to get on the show or that don't know me. It's just a straight networking. So, cool. and of course seeing all the products, but there's nothing like that face-to-face handshake interaction with people, versus a Facebook message, which is my main means of communication with people. So that's kind of my reason, trying to grow the show.
Yeah,
I like it. I'm trying to do the same thing.
Yeah. And going with you mentioned Darren Priest. The collaboration that you two have together comes back to our original topic. The collaboration of the podcast and the videos is really interesting and quite nice as well. So
Yeah,
and Darren does a great job of educating as well. So
yeah, and what's funny about that is that was kind of a selfish I had a selfish ploy in that whole thing of like, because Chris West told me, oh, you need to reach out to this Darren guy. And then I looked him up and he had a pretty big following. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like maybe I can reach some of his following and stuff like that. So I just randomly reached out to him. Turns out me and him like totally hit it off. And it helps to hit it off with someone when you think the same, and he has the same mindset that we're talking about is, look, there's plenty enough cars to go around. He actually sends me work. We work on projects together detailing wise, and we collaborate with videos and podcasts and stuff like that. Not as much as we would like to, but timing and trying to figure out schedules is difficult. But yeah, that's it. It's, like I was telling you guys before, he's probably a 20-minute drive from me. So, we're both kind of dabbling in the same work areas as that's concerned, and both online and offline, but it seems like when you can team up together, you have a bigger impact together than either one of us would have individually.
Teamwork makes everything better.
Teamwork is dream work.
Yeah, and so we can't really talk about that without bringing up the turf wars or gang wars that it almost seems that some people have from one company to the next.
That's such an interesting thing, and I get it because with Darren, I see him in areas that I work, and my initial, if I'm being completely honest, my initial gut reaction is like, man, what are you doing down here? Like that's my area, and I'm sure he would have the same initial gut reaction of like, man, this is my area, what are you doing over here? But at the end of the day, there's just so many, at least where I'm at, there's just so many cars and there's so much work, and not every another way I look at it too is I'm not gonna vibe with every customer either. So some customers may not like my style, whatever that means to them, whereas they may like Darren's style or Dan's style or Ivan's style or whatever. So, I just look at it like, well, look, not every customer is a fit for me, and I'm not a fit for every customer either.
Yeah, I used to just say I don't have any competition, really. Well, and not like in a cocky way, but just like I just really
stay in my own lane, man. Do my own thing.
And those turf wars you were talking about, Dan, it's quite funny because when we go to trade shows, it's the detailers themselves that quote unquote represent the brand or that use the brand that are the ones propagating this turf war, whereas the reps from the different companies, we all hang out together.
Right.
It's at MTE, not Mobile Tech Expo, sorry, at Detail Fest last year. If someone would have taken a picture of the table I was having supper at, it wasn't, there were 6 different companies represented and 7 people sitting at the table. So, and we're all getting along, having fun and laughing and enjoying each other's company. And there was no turf war going on there whatsoever. But if you listen to some of the detailers out there, because of one person using this brand and one person using that brand, they're mortal enemies. And no, it's, pick something you like and use it. That's what it is.
At our training classes just a few weeks ago, we had a couple of the ex-McGuire's guys. One of them works for Rupes now, and they were at our training class, and we still stay in touch now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny too when whether it's a guy that represents a company bashing a company or whatever, or a detailer trying to bash another detailer, it really only looks bad on that person who's doing it, and really only affects them. And it's like, because does a customer really care what products you're using or what you feel about other products? Not really. They just want their car cleaned. So
we sell a result, not a process.
Yeah. So it's always funny to me of like, people bashing products, and it's like, man, if you don't like it, just don't use it. There's plenty of just like there's plenty of cars to clean out there. There's plenty of products out there to find something you like. Because I'm pretty sure you'll find something you like if you try enough product.
Exactly.
And you don't even have to be mad about the other product.
No.
Exactly. It's kind of like I look at it like diets and weight loss programs. It's like just find one you like. It may not because I feel like any diet or weight loss program will probably work because it's probably so radically different from what you're currently doing. So it's like sometimes you pick up these products and they seem so much better because they're just new, and so go with that for a while, until you find something else. Who cares? But yeah, no need to bash something because it doesn't work for you when it may work perfectly fine for someone else.
Oh, it's kind of one of the things that we do when that I learned from Yvan when we go to train somebody at their own shop. We take all of the other products off the shelf right away.
Say that again?
I said we take all the other products off so they don't have those to choose from right away, and not in a negative way, but to teach the whole system.
Right.
Together as a system. I don't even know if that just made sense. It made sense when I was thinking about it, and then when I said it, it didn't make as much sense.
Well, it's just when we're teaching how to use the Optimum synergy system, we want the person to be able to learn how to use the system. And
right.
When you're using a new product that you've never used before, if you're used to using, let's say, XYZ compound, and all of a sudden you're using hyper compound, yes, it is going to be radically different than what you're used to using. So there is an adaptation to be done. There is a change, and it may not seem like it's working for you, but use it a couple times, it's like, oh, wow, finally, this stuff really does work well. But so when we go into a shop, and especially for dealerships and things like that, where they're used to using, products off trucks and not necessarily the most high-tech products on the market. So, we put those, we have the manager put those products aside, and all they have available to them for the next week or 2 weeks is our products. And that forces the employees to use those products and get familiar with them. Because if they don't get familiar with them, then they can't really form an opinion of them. Because they just see it in the demonstration, try it once or twice, decide, I don't like this because it doesn't work like the stuff I was used to using.
I picked up on that also. I was listening to your podcast, Jimbo, with Mike Phillips, and he said that when he started selling for McGuire's, he was going and selling the system. And that's exactly, when he said that, I was like, that's exactly what we're doing. You're going in and you're selling a system that's made to work together.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What else you guys got? Oh yeah, keep going.
Well, one thing I'm a little known for is my passion for O&R. Well, someone who's been using soap to wash cars for 30 years, you put a bucket of O&R in front of them and they're lost.
Right.
Some people pick it up right away and it's like, wow, this is the best thing since sliced bread. Other people are like, ugh, there's no suds. How can it be cleaning? So, and then once you get to know O&R and you get to use O&R, most people don't go back to soap. But it's one of those things where it's radically different.
Right.
It needs to be. You need to wrap your head around it to be able to use it. Dan is the prime example of that. He was selling O&R for a year before he'd even use it. So
that's so funny. And hey, we love all the plugs that you give us on O&R on your podcast.
It's saved.
Can't help it. It's just that good.
It is, and it's the main reason I started using it. Well, my reasoning has changed. Now it's mainly an efficiency standpoint, but initially it was I just wanted to keep. My anxiety was really high with having a pressure washer and having a bunch of runoff. And so, I was constant and sometimes working in high end areas, and not necessarily the city driving by, but also you never know what neighbor is hiding out inside their house and gonna rat you out. you know,
or filming you, going to put you onto
or film you
on social media.
Yeah.
I had one little kid that came out, and it was before I started using no rinse, and it was a little kid, probably about 8 years old or 9 years old, and she's like, you can't have this water going on the ground. I was like, oh my goodness, I guess they talked about it in school.
Yeah, yeah, and then the whole drought thing hits, and you're like, oh man, and I can't tell you how many times it's just been more convenient to use ONR, because then that means I could do my customer's car in their garage instead of pulling it out into the hot sun,
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing for many reasons.
Yeah, it's and not to mention, how many times I've been using a pressure washer and the hose pops a hole in it right in the middle of me doing a car. It's like, oh gosh. So I don't have to worry about that anymore.
So I think maybe one of my favorite podcasts that you did was the one where you had your wife on there, and it was the two of you. It was that was so fun. I don't know that I'd be allowed to do that, but holy crap, that was really fun.
It's really fun to do. I got one negative comment. The guy was like, "Man, this is just a giant ramble session, and her voice is so annoying." But it's extremely fun to do, So
yeah, when she was busting your balls, that was just I loved it. It made me feel like it was me and Angel,
Exactly, yeah, and that's kind of what I try to do, just make it so people can relate to it, But yeah, those are really, really fun to do. It's always fun to just take a digital audio recorder and go record something, because you can almost forget that it's there. So then it just, instead of having like a microphone in your face and you're constantly vigilant of it being there, a digital audio recorder, you can kind of just set it down, and people tend to forget, and it kind of breaks down barriers. And people get sometimes a little too comfortable. Maybe.
And do those things have like a gain on them that you can adjust?
Depending on which one you get, so they can get kind of expensive. But you have, yes, so the more expensive ones do. And then even you can plug an XLR right into them. So some have like 2 ports, and then some have 4 ports, and stuff like that. So you could actually plug a mic right into it, if you want.
And I think one of the cool things about the podcast is like, especially for guys who are detailing cars, you can just throw your headphones on and listen to it while you're working, and just
exactly.
a good way to pass time. I would either listen to those or to Bloomberg Radio while I was working.
Yep. You don't have to say no to something else to say yes to a podcast.
Yeah.
It's like I've said that before, you know what I mean? Unlike a YouTube video where you literally have to watch. I guess you could listen to a YouTube video, but you really got to, sit there, and all you can focus on is that one thing
exactly.
going on at a time.
Or a forum, or on Facebook or anything. You can just go about your business, and you got information dumping into your ears.
Exactly. I hate reading. So forums, and it's just like, oh man, sometimes it gets to be too much for me.
Do you listen to any other podcasts?
So I listen to, let me see, one that I'm actually really enjoying right now, it's kind of business related, but it's called Short Story Long. And it's by, do you guys remember the show Rob and Big, or Fantasy Factory, or Ridiculousness by Rob Dyrdek?
No.
Okay. So he's a professional skateboarder, but he had all these shows. And his cousin was in the show, but his cousin started a clothing company, but then started this podcast. And he interviews, it's a longer form podcast, so most shows are like an hour and a half to 2 hours long, but he interviews like a bunch of maybe people that like started a clothing company, or are like managers for recording artists and stuff like that, but they really talk about their journey into it. And I'm kind of a sucker for stories. There's also the Tim Ferriss Show, obviously. I also listen to The Way I Heard It with Mike Rowe. He hasn't released an episode in a while, but that's a really good. They're only like 10 minutes, but that's a really good podcast too. What else? The Ask Gary V show. I listen to that because I like Gary Vaynerchuk. And the Startup Podcast.
Well, you do listen to a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
Not only makes podcasts, he consumes podcasts.
Yeah. And like I said, I just listened to the audiobook on Phil Knight, the guy who started Nike. And that was like an emotional roller coaster, I swear. That was a great book. It's called Shoe Dog. And also...
How about you?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Do you listen to any other podcasts, Yvan?
Yeah, I listened to Cars Yeah with Mark Green that we had on the show a little while ago. Ammo NYC, when he puts one out. They're few and far between, but nonetheless. And Vinyl Cafe, which is for Canadians. It's on the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And it's an interesting show. Chronicles the guy that owns a record store. And it's been going on. It was a radio show. Well, still is a radio show that's released weekly. Been going on for about 25 years now. And now it's become a podcast, so it's more convenient to listen to it because now we can listen to it when we want to. We don't have to tune in at a specific time. So, but the Vinyl Cafe is very good, light entertainment, always fun, and the stories there are fun. But and other than that, nothing really. And you, Dan?
Yeah, very much those. And I listen to Sex with Emily. Comes out twice a week. It's kind of like a talk show. Obviously, it's a podcast, so duh. But just fun, light, informational stuff that, by golly, you can put it to use in your everyday life.
There you go.
I love it. Do you guys have any last things you want to ask or you want to talk about?
Well, I think first of all we need to do this again sometime.
Definitely, SEMA.
Yeah,
we could do an in-person one.
Yeah.
I like it.
We'll be at SEMA, booth 12531. So, and we have a new booth this year, which is great for us.
Awesome. Bigger?
Yeah. Bigger,
better, stronger.
Yeah, and we don't have to put it up. So that's a big improvement for us.
Yeah.
Because we're 20 feet by 30 feet this year.
Wow.
Yeah. The one we had for the last couple years, Dan baptized it the Ring of Hell or something like that.
Ring of Fury.
Yeah. It was to put it mildly, a pain in the ass to put up. So
I thought they didn't want you guys to set up your own booths there. I thought you had to deliver everything into like a container or something, and then they set it up. That's not the case?
Well, we had to hire some of the union help from the place to set it up, electricians, things like that.
You're not allowed to stand on a ladder.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Not allowed to plug anything in. You're not allowed to stand on a ladder. Technically, you're not allowed to have too many tools in your hand. So,
wow.
But nonetheless, we'd help them out because it didn't really come with instructions. So it was an interesting adventure to put it together. The first year, I wasn't there to put it together, but
I think it took us like 15 hours or something. It was
gosh.
Speaking of networking, Jim Guggen from Ipswich, Mass, just happened to be walking through the show before it was set up and stopped by and helped them set it up. So that was really nice of him. Over the years, we got better at putting it together. And the last time we took it down was at the NADA show, and we didn't shed a tear for some reason.
Now we just show up like rock stars, and it's going to be all set up for us.
Show up and blow it, baby.
I love it.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on your show.
And we appreciate you having us on your show.
and we'll definitely do this again.
I guess so. We're going to coordinate a dual release on Monday. Otherwise, who in the heck's going to listen to the same thing on Wednesday?
Right? Well, you never know. I'm sure you guys have different followers than me, and vice versa. Which again could be nice networking for both of us.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, how do we get a hold of Jimbo Balaam?
You just can Google Jimbo, and I'll pop right up. No, that's not true, but I wish it was. How cool would that be? But if you Google Jimbo Balaam, I pop right up.
That's BALAAM.
Yeah, you got it. Or just autodetailingpodcast.com, and I have all my links there. How about you guys? How can people find you?
Opticoat.com.
Yep, and individually, probably Facebook is the easiest. And all you got to do is Google Optimum Synergy Podcast, and the first 2 pages are Optimum Synergy Podcast.
There you go. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Auto Detailing Podcast. Head on over to autodetailingpodcast.com for full show notes and links of everything that we've talked about today. And don't forget to check out our resources page for a direct link to all the products talked about not only on today's episode, but that I use in my day-to-day detail business. They have direct links so you can purchase and get free shipping right from that page. That's autodetailingpodcast.com. We'll see you on the next episode.